everyone, and welcome back to our weekly workshop. I'm Tina Dai, your host. Today, our session is titled Building on Kinto, the Safety First L2 for DeFi. Kinto is a EdCon sponsor this year, and we're really excited to have Victor Sanchez, who is Kinto's CTO, with us here today to tell you all about Kinto. In this session, Victor is going to give you an overview of Kinto, its features, and the mission that it has to basically secure accessibility of on-chain finance. And he will also share more about how you, as a developer, might start building on Kinto. Before we dive into the heart of our discussion, a few quick reminders. The first of which is, if you have any questions, feel free to put that in our YouTube channel or on Twitter or Discord in the general channel, and we can address those asynchronously. And of course, for EdCon as well as UETH, a lot of what we're passionate about is showcasing projects that are tackling really real-world challenges and applications. And so with everything we put out there, we really hope that any listener takes the lessons that you learn, reflect on how you can contribute to different projects like developing on Kinto, and get started with experiential learning. So I'm going to bring up Victor, and let's give a warm welcome to him. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having us. Yeah, super excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, before we dive into your presentation, we usually have the listeners learn a bit more about your journey as well as how you got to where you are today. So we'd love if you could share a bit more about your background.
Sure. My name is Victor Sanchez. I'm the CTO and co-founder, one of the three co-founders of Kinto. Probably you can already tell by my accent, even though I live in the US and I have been living here for a while. I am originally from Spain. So is Ramon Recuero, our CEO, a good friend and one of my co-founders at Kinto. Even though we met, funny enough, in Chicago while we were studying our master here in the US, both with an engineering background, never met in Spain and met here. And we kind of ruined each other's life in the following way. I invited Ramon to come with me to an event that in Chicago. It was the first time that we did something like this. It was called a startup weekend, and we enjoyed so much a startup weekend that since then, none of us have been able to actually work for a large company, for a very long time, even though Ramon has experience from Google to Y Combinator, but we have never been long there because we are addicted to startups. We both have been building startups now for almost 15 years. However, Ramon, a few years later, he took revenge on me and he introduced me to crypto. I've been an investor and then I started coding on top of Ethereum and EVM networks. And yeah, both bugs kind of got us hard, to be completely honest. We got both the entrepreneurial side and the crypto side. And yeah, we gave each other probably these two beautiful curses that we have carried now for quite a bit of time. My background in most of these companies were related to video infrastructure, mostly decentralized video, which, funny enough, applies very well to building blockchains, right? Because you have the same problems in terms of infrastructure. In fact, I would say even sometimes blockchains are easier because there is way less data to move instead of moving video and audio, right? But yeah, that's me.
Well, I mean, I was just about to ask you what brought you into the crypto world. So it sounds like Ramon, your co-founder, but what's really kept you around?
I think crypto hasn't been realized yet as an industry or as a technology. And in fact, it would kind of break my heart if crypto finishes tomorrow. It's going to be kind of remembered for a number of very famous scammers, thieves, and con artists. And it's a pity because what I have seen so far in the space has nothing to do with that. 99.9% of the space is really savvy engineers, really smart people trying to build a more decentralized future for our finances, but also for many other things, right? As we see in governance and DAOs, etc. So the reason I'm around is because crypto is not done. There is so much more still to come. And if it finishes tomorrow, I honestly would dislike so much the point where it would finish at. And the reason why I'm here, why Ramon is here, why Kinto exists, is because we want to build a lasting piece of the ecosystem.
I love that because I personally also feel like most of the people I've encountered in crypto has been really, open and very like ethos aligned towards having this open ecosystem where it's positive sum, and there's also this promise of like an ownership economy, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm also very excited about the promise of crypto, and I'm really glad to see you and people like Ramon building out crypto to its potential. Well, I think that's a really great diving point to go into your presentation. We'll love if you could get started on your presentation and also sort of share, the origin story of Kinto and what exact solution you are providing to the general ecosystem. So I'm going to remove myself from the stage and bring up your slide.
All right. So thank you very much again, Tina, for the wonderful introduction. And obviously, we love to be here, part of EdCon, and we are looking forward for the event itself. As we mentioned, we are Kinto, the safety first L2 for finance. And before I dive in the presentation itself and a little bit on this presentation is going to kind of cover two things that we believe are really important. First of all, I'm going to tell you the story on how we are building Kinto, because I believe that understanding some of the technical decisions that we have made when we decided kind of the whole piece and the whole ecosystem of this very particular L2, I may add, I think it will give a lot of insight to developers that want then to build on top. And I'm going to cover it as well a little bit on how to do that, on how to get started, even though, again, Kinto is fully EVM compatible, as I'm going to repeat several times over this presentation, but it does have some particularities that I would like to share. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about the story of Kinto itself. So as I mentioned, right, both Ramon and I are very involved in startups, very involved in the crypto ecosystem. In fact, Ramon actually built a protocol. It was called Babylon Finance. And Babylon Finance is a protocol that never got hacked. However, because the beautiful composability of crypto, Rari, another protocol, another DeFi protocol that Babylon had ties to, got hacked, and that triggered essentially a bank run on Babylon as well, due to the honestly also lacking governance and communication during all of this ordeal that happened with Rari. First, they said, "Oh, we're going to return everything back." Then they didn't. Then in the end, they ended up giving up. But a lot of people on the ecosystem got hurt due to that. And Ramon came to a realization that inspired the company, right? And it's basically that, look, it doesn't really matter what are you building, how much financial freedom you are generating if left and right you are being hacked and scammed all over. And the reality is that was kind of the seed of Kinto, which is this safe space, right? This safe space for both users, but also for TradFi and for institutions to come into the blockchain space in the safest way possible. In order to do that, then we have enabled a number of things, both in the technological aspect and in the social aspect, on how this network works. So let's dive in a little bit more and try to understand how this actually works. The first thing that we need to understand is that Kinto is the first L2 built on the Arbitrum Nitro stack. So probably you have known by now about Base. Obviously, Base is kind of the most prominent optimism stack-based chain. We are to what Base is to optimism, Kinto is to Arbitrum, right? We are parallel to Arbitrum 1, to Arbitrum Nova, even though we use the Nitro stack, which is famous, right, for the orbits that are the L3s. But Kinto is the first L2 of its kind with this Arbitrum technology. By the way, I know there is also plenty of people from Arbitrum at EdCon. Wonderful partners. This is an extremely smart team that has built not only the best tech for building chains like ours, both L2s and L3s, but the human team, right, that is in there, and how we were received by both off-chain labs, the DAO, and the ecosystem at large at Arbitrum. It has been really inspiring, and I mention it every time I put this slide on because they deserve it. They are really good at what they do. So if we look at Kinto, right, from a mission vision perspective, which is how I like to start these things, is Kinto has two pillars. We are all about security, but also we are all about usability, because sometimes security comes at the cost of complexity, and many people see a barrier of entry that is absolutely insurmountable for many of them. So we need to pair both of them, because if not, we cannot advance. How we did we do that? It's kind of the whole talk and wrapping, if you like, on how do you combine those two things, because we are very used to these, security in crypto means 20 minutes and a very important paper with 24 words that you can never lose in a voting accident for any reason, right? So you have to be very, very careful on how you manage that. And it's something that is still a point of fear on coming into the space that we wanted to solve as well. But not only that, we wanted to make sure that you are joining a place where both developers, users, DeFi and TradFi can feel safe from day one. And that takes a lot of doing, to be completely honest. So let's take a look on how that looks like in terms of technological and kind of philosophy decisions. So the first and most important aspect on Kinto, right, is we have still a permissionless and decentralized ethos. Ramon and I are crypto anarchists at heart, and I know that comes maybe as a surprise when we are telling you now that we have KYC and KYB on our chain, and in fact is necessary. However, we are implementing KYC and KYB on Kinto in the most decentralized, anonymous, and privacy-preserving possible way. This is how it works. Basically, you are going to take a selection of KYC providers. You're going to know most of them because either you have used them before in your bank, you have used them before in your crypto exchange. So you're going to know some of these providers. One of the three that we are offering for sure, you are going to know, and you probably have already gone through that process. We are not going to store any of that information on chain, and anyone can start in a permissionless way this process. However, we have changed the consensus rule of the chain in order to add this new condition, which is you have to be KYC or KYB, but no information is stored on chain, and no one can reveal your identity except if you sign a transaction that allows for you to reveal that identity, because your counterparty has the need to store your PII in order to give you access to stocks or to give you access to real estate deals and things like that. The other thing that is really important is, even though I'm going to mention, right, some changes in our architecture, we are, as I mentioned before, fully EVM compatible. This was really important because the talent on the space, right? I mean, there are so many ones and protocols that have tried to do kind of these permission walled gardens, and they have failed miserably because they have been walking away from the Ethereum ecosystem, which is full of talent and honestly is the highest TVL around. So we wanted to be connected to both the talent and the TVL that comes from being in the Ethereum space. And the best way to do so was to apply this restriction on KYC, these usability and security practices at the L2 abstraction level. So that is another very important aspect. And then, as I mentioned before, to anyone coming into the network, including protocols or users, we are offering not only that KYC, but we are doing AML, fraud monitoring, KYT. We are protecting the network with a number of providers and a number of proprietary technologies that I'm going to mention now, and I will kind of explain these different changes that we have done. But the idea here, in the end, is making available this kind of set of technologies on top of that EVM chain, and you will see now how we have put that technology in the hands of the developers. So what are the differences? First of all, and this is going to be kind of shocking, I'm sure, EOAs, externally owned accounts, are disabled on Kinto. And you'll say, okay, there is no network then. How does it work? How it works is because everyone on Kinto is forced to use account abstraction. So the only role of EOAs on Kinto is to become a signer of our smart contract wallet. We call it the memory wallet. And what you're going to do is you're going to create this multi-sig account. This is very important. We are all familiar with Gnosis Safe. It's probably one of the securest way or securest paradigm of handling a wallet, right? That multi-sig strategy. But the Gnosis Safe, even for experts, it takes a while. It's hard to use. There is a lot of usability hiccups, if you like, on that piece. We have removed a lot of those. We have kind of absorbed a lot of complexity on our implementation of account abstraction, EIP 4337 compatible. Nothing magical in here. Again, drinking from the beauty of the ecosystem of Ethereum. Third thing, all users need a valid Kinto ID. This is a soul-bound NFT that is going to be tied to your Kinto wallet, in fact, to your first signer of your Kinto wallet, to be precise. And the Kinto ID essentially represents that you have gone through the process of that KYC or KYB, and it's the way that we have to reflect some information, still privacy preserving, to the rest of the chain. There is no information here. Your name is not there, your address is not there, your passport number is not there. But there are some things that are interesting, like, for instance, asking your Kinto ID, are you sanction safe? Are you KYC'd in this jurisdiction? Are you an accredited investor in the US or in another country? We have this trade system that goes onto the Kinto ID, and that I will show you later how the API works, in order to give some easy information for the 99.9% of use cases that don't require anything else, don't require to ask for any PII that has kind of another route in the Kinto chain, because all the PII is stored off-chain on the KYC provider that you selected. I'm going to explain this process with detail a little bit later on. And the fourth and last one is we are enforcing this KYC and compliance rule at the node level, right? As I mentioned before, we have added, right, essentially a modification on the chain infrastructure itself at the Go Ethereum level to make sure that these KYC and compliance rules are enforced as a consensus rule of the network. Which means that in order for you to commit a crime on Kinto, like a scam or a fraud, and then get away with it, you have to do quite a few things. You have to steal one or more than one identity. You have to come into the chain. Inside the chain, you need to be able to do the hack or the scam, and then you need to be able to get out through our bridge, even though at any point in time, when the governance realizes this, or when we realize that this is a stolen identity, your Kinto ID can be invalidated, locking you from doing operations that could kind of consummate that scam inside of Kinto. This is really, really important. Building Kinto is not an easy task. However, we have a village of providers that are helping us on making this possible. This slide, it's really problematic because every time that I talk about Kinto, I need to add more logos. So as you can see, it's quite crowded. So let me kind of give you we're going to go from inside out on this graphic, and I'm going to explain you all the technical decisions that come with choosing some of these providers. First of all, at the core of Kinto is the Arbitrum stack. As I mentioned, not only a great human team on Off-Chain Labs and on the DAO, but this is the best technology and one of the most reputable stacks. They have been there forever. You have a bridge that is battle tested. You know, it's a 3.5 billion honeypot that no one has been able to break. There is a lot of reasons to choose the Arbitrum stack, and it's really hard to pinpoint which one of the three that I mentioned was the most important for us. In terms of infrastructure, we trust Caldera from the very start as our RAS provider, as a roll-up as a service. They run some of our nodes, some archival nodes. They run as well our sequencer, even though I'm going to talk about the sequencer very, very quickly here, because obviously we have Espresso in this slide as well. But we have trusted Caldera to run the core of our network from the start, and both our web services and some of the information that is needed to be stored. We are using Netlify and Fauna that I'm sure many developers of Web2 will be familiar with. We started with Caldera, but of course, RPCs and chains are all about decentralization, geographical dispersion, and reliability, which is why we added not one, but 3 additional RPC node providers: Anchor, which also runs our load balancer, QuickNode, and Nodis. And developers can go to both QuickNode and Nodis to get public and private RPCs for their developments. And again, Anchor and Caldera provide public ones for anyone to be able to access. So with this combination, we cover, again, not only 4 different providers. It's going to be really hard to put Kinto down thanks to this decentralization of providers. And of course, we expect partners to be able to run nodes in the near future, before the end of the year as well. But in the meantime, we are already thinking big in terms of infrastructure. Going up, we have the security. We have joined Hypernative Chain Analysis and Iron Blocks. Also Crystal Intelligence, by the way, I'm missing a logo here. Basically, Hypernative monitors every single contract and transaction that is deployed or executed on Kinto. We have both static rules and also AI-based rules that are kind of this black box that Hypernative does so well. Whenever something goes out of the ordinary, we are immediately notified. And not only we are immediately notified, because we have this kind of connection between our security providers and the Kinto ID. Whenever a KYC or a KYB provider tell us in the real world, this identity has been flagged for financial fraud or is on an OFAC sanctioned country, we are going to take that information from the real world. However, Hypernative, Chainalysis, Iron Blocks, and Crystal Intelligence can give us on-chain intelligence. So if you are doing something weird, you developed a contract that looks malicious because of its interactions, you are doing a number of transactions that look malicious, these systems can flag and your Kinto ID will be blocked until someone is able to review it and unlock it for you if it was a false positive. But in this case, on security, we shoot first and we ask questions later, which is really important, I think, and it's part of this philosophy, if you want, of how we're going to keep people safe. On the KYC and KYB, I mentioned before, you're going to know some of these. Plaid, if you have used Bank of America or Coinbase, you are using Plaid. Synapse, if you are using Binance, you are using Synapse. On FIDO, plenty of European and American TradFi providers are using on FIDO. So basically, you're going to know one of the three. And again, we are incredibly neutral. You're going to be able to choose any of the three. And governance will be able to add further KYC on KYB providers. So let's go to the fun stuff. How does this work? How does this whole experience work? You're going to come for the first time into Kinto. And what you're going to do is, okay, I need to choose a KYC provider. It's the first time that I'm interacting with a dApp that uses Kinto, that is deployed on Kinto. I'm going to select, again, Synapse, Plaid, or on FIDO, and I'm going to go through that process. Once that we get the green flag, the all good of these users, we are gonna get, and we don't sort that PII, they do, but they give us the hands up or the heads up green check for this to happen. Once that happens, we are gonna mint your identity through our identity node. We're gonna receive that information that you are good to go, and we're gonna do three things. We're gonna create your Kinto wallet. We're going to create your first signer for that wallet, for that smart account, multi-sig, a smart contract wallet. That's going to be a turnkey passkey, again, usually based on your face or your other biometrics. And finally, we're going to mint as well your Kinto ID. So basically, by the time you get out of the onboarding, you have probably the most secure wallet that you have ever owned on any chain. Because again, unless you are, a power user of Knows is safe, by default, the Kinto wallet is a multi-sig that is much safer than any of your hardware wallets alone, or any of your cold wallets, or like MetaMask and others, of your hot wallets, right? Like MetaMask, Robin, and others. Because basically, you have this signer where you have the first signer is tied to your device or to your biometrics, and the second and third signers that you can add are other signers that you want to add. And we usually recommend that those are hardware wallets. So by the time you are done, you have this Kinto ID tied to your identity, but not revealing any PII. You have the very first turnkey signer, as I mentioned, and two more signers that you have added to your smart contract wallet. So now what? You get this smart contract wallet with IIP 4337 active. It's a multi-sig by default. It has 24-hour checks of KYC, AML, and compliance, and it actually will expire. The Kinto ID that comes with the wallet will expire every 24 hours unless it is renewed. You have passkey signatures that allow for truly magical signing experiences, putting your finger on the keyboard, putting your face in front of the device, and you are signing transactions at the very start with that, kind of making the experience very quick, very easy, and probably the best UX on the space, if you allow me to say so myself. But don't believe me, go try it. You can start, your Kinto experience today. So go try it for yourself. I think you would be pleasantly surprised. So let's talk a little bit about the code. What do I do as a developer, and how do I put this together? Sorry, because I was here passing. I was so excited, I was forgetting to pass some of these slides. So I apologize for that. But yeah, let me show you a little bit of the code and how does this work. So if you look at the code itself, the first thing that you need to know is that we have, obviously, because you have to use your Kinto wallet for everything, your smart contract wallet, EOAs wouldn't be able to deploy directly contracts. So we have put together a modified create-to deployment proxy that you can use through our wallet factory or directly through the proxy. But basically, it's a way to quickly deploy contracts through your Kinto wallet or using one of your EOAs as with your deployer public and private key, because as we mentioned, right, one of your EOAs is tied to your passkey, so you can use that as a shortcut, if you like, to put some of these contracts out. We don't want to be a pain for developers. Really easy, as you can see in here, just wallet factory deploy contract, the EOA, the contract creation that you need on the way for the gas, and then obviously you encode the contract itself. You have a salt to be able to generate more than one address if you want to deploy more than one instance of the contract. Nothing out of the ordinary. What else? Obviously, this is an account abstraction based chain. There is something really special about account abstractions, which is called the sponsor paymaster. The sponsor paymaster allows to remove the concept of gas out of Kinto. Kinto, for 99% of the users, as long as you are not withdrawing, if you are withdrawing, you're going to pay for the gas. But for everything else, Kinto and its developers, its partners, are paying for the gas. And we are not paying for the gas because the gas is expensive on Kinto. In fact, it's absolutely cheap. But the reason why is because we don't want you as a user to even know that you are using a blockchain experience. And the best way to do that is that you forget about the gas. And how we do that is that the operations are paid through the sponsor paymaster of VIP 4337. That means that you as a developer need to care of funding some of these contracts. You are going to have a portal, a developer portal on Kinto.xyz, but also, of course, you can do this directly through the smart contracts API. And there is plenty of documentation that I'm going to link at the end of this for anyone to check out. But basically, you're going to check the balance with a sponsor paymaster.balances, and you're going to add deposit for your contracts that you just deployed with my prior slide with add deposit for, and kind of fund those contracts that you are deploying. So your final user, that of course you're going to charge this and more, but they are not going to know that gas is being spent and how these transactions are being paid. And that's one of the magics of the UX of Kinto. And again, here we are very lucky to use account abstraction and the wonderful EIP 4337. Once more, the power of being connected to the EVM ecosystem and to the Ethereum ecosystem. More things. So, as I mentioned before, all your transactions are going to be against the entry point, right? That's the other big paradigm of the account abstraction. Basically, you need to use user operations. User operations are not anything else other than kind of pre-packaged transaction, if you like, that you're going to send through that entry point for processing. So the wallet takes and packages user operations, can be one or more than one, and you are sending all of those through the entry point that is going to unpack them and execute them one at a time, and funding them with the sponsor paymaster, as we thought before. So this is a very super easy example on how you can use as well some of the, we have created a couple of, on our Kinto core repository, we have created a few kind of utils, if you like, even though you could do this directly in Solidity, but there is a small utility library, if you like, that we have created in our repository. So you're going to create your user operations, we create user op, and you're going to put here the chain ID, where are you going in terms of the wallet, which operations are you generating, and who is paying for the party, in this case, the sponsor paymaster. The other thing that we are doing on the wallet, and this is pretty unique as well, if you see this first user operation, it's calling to whitelist app. Whitelist app, it's a function of your wallet, and what allows you to do is essentially tell, I am okay interacting with this application. So basically, all applications are blacklisted by default on your wallet, and the first interaction that you have to have, and this is going to be both a smart contract and a UI process, that will allow you to start interacting with that contract, kind of whitelisting, if you like, that contract in your own wallet to start interacting with it. This is a transparent and permissionless process, but you have to do that. Essentially, it's kind of putting an additional step before something like the ERC20 permits and all of that. Imagine that, but at an application level. And by the way, the application Kinto concept includes several contracts in the sense that the developers have created this entity, this application entity that can have one or several smart contracts, and you are whitelisting the app, which is this kind of bundle of smart contracts that you're going to interact with by providing this approval. Once I have a sponsor paymaster at deposit 4, I have whitelisted with this user operation, I'm ready to start doing stuff. And that stuff, in this case, is going to be very boring. It's an increment user operation, but you can see once more what we are doing. We need the address of our own wallet, of our own Kinto wallet, the address of the counter, the nonce, the private keys, one or more, because it could be that you are signing with one or more. So you're going to need to sign with or provide the signatures of that multi-sig. And finally, you're going to, once more, encode the user operation with that signature. In this case, a very easy increment. And once more, always providing the sponsor paymaster that is going to pay for the party in this case. All right, I'm almost done, I promise. I know I am kind of exceeding a little bit here, but we had a little bit of questions at the beginning. So I think more or less I'm there. The Kinto ID, as I mentioned before, you need to put some restrictions sometimes because your use case, if you're in real estate, you are doing stocks on chain or indexed funds, I don't know. The reality is that you may need to check, hey, is this person KYC or KYB? Are you sanction safe in this country or not? In here, you can see how to access that information. In our documentation, you can see both the is KYC and the is sanction safe, but also you will see things like the hash trade. Hash trade allows you to know things like, if you have a number 1, you are a USA accredited investor, but if you have the trade 840, that happens to be the USA country code in ISO. So basically, you can know what is the jurisdiction of that Kinto ID that you're interacting with without ever revealing any PII. But there is a lot of applications, 90% of them, that only with these flags are able already to be compliant in their respective use cases. As I mentioned, a lot of stuff, all of it is properly documented in our documentation. There is plenty of other beautiful one-liners that can change your life in Kinto and make compliance a breeze for you. And I invite you all to go try them on the link that you are seeing below, and that I'm sure we're going to link as well on the YouTube video that you are seeing. If you want to continue learning, there are 2 ways to do so. The first one, if you're a freaky like me, you don't want to read any docs that anyone wrote, show me the code. kintoxyc/kinto.core in GitHub. If you sometimes need to read a little bit more, want it a little bit more explained, some examples like the one that I've shown and many more, you can go to docs.kinto.xyz and you will find there everything from our governance, our architecture, and plenty of other stuff. So with this said, I'm a Spaniard. We speak way too quickly. Hopefully now Tina will give me, a few easy questions so I can breathe. But I hope that you like it. I hope that you are interested on building on Kinto. Thank you very much for the information. If you want to start building, developers@memorylabs.com is there for you. And we are KintoXYZ on Twitter. My handle in Twitter @Victor Sanchez. Happy to answer as well any questions in there. We have a very active Discord. You can find the invite on our Twitter. And we have as well there a developer channel that is about to pick up as we start launching some of these functionality. And with this said, I'm going to breathe for a second.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
That was a ton of information. So I do have some questions before we wrap up. And of course, if there's other questions that this conversation inspires, feel free to drop them in our Discord, in our Twitter, etc., and we can get those answered asynchronously for you. But you obviously covered a lot in your presentation. So what are some of the top 2-3 things you would hope that listeners take away from this presentation?
So I think number 1, the safest place to get started or to kind of be a veteran that is tired of hacks and scams is definitely Kinto. Second one is account extraction is absolutely magic. And it allows you to change the experience of users in a fundamental way. And the third one is basically that thanks to this Kinto ID, you are going to have for the first time one-line compliance for many protocols that are out there trying to do it on their own, which is extremely hard. And they're absolute heroes, right? The kind of the trailblazers here kind of guided the way. But we have done all of that integration work in Kinto for you to come with your application and start building stuff and focusing on what you really want to focus without having to worry about all of this, honestly, kind of outdated technology. KYC is going to die, and zero knowledge proof is going to replace it all probably soon. But in the meantime, this is what governments like, and we need to do something in the middle to be able to bring a lot of what is missing on chain right now, because governments are not legislating quickly enough. So Kinto is a stepping stone towards that future.
I think it makes a lot of sense for a chain to aggregate a lot of the compliance requirements. How long have you been building Kinto? And what's the current snapshot of the chain, meaning like number of users or any metrics you're open to sharing?
Of course. We've been building Kinto for a year now. It's been a long process. We started, of course, in the core of the bear market when no one believed anything anymore, which is the perfect time to build. We like the quiet building, both Ramon and I, because now we are in an absolute frenzy. 25,000 users have gone through our KYC process in a matter of weeks when we launched that first process. Out of those, there is another important metric that I never say, but I'm going to say today. And it's we have rejected 10,000 old scammers, people that were involved in previous thefts and things like that have tried to game the network. We have refused, out of those 10,000, there is almost 6,000 bots that were trying to reuse identity. Kinto is civil resistant by design, thanks to that KYC. So 25,000 in, 10,000 potential scammers rejected out of that. These 25,000, there has been almost $23.5 million that have been put in TVL, since we started our phase 4, which our capital commitment of the launch. And right now we are one of the most voted ever proposals in Tally to create our DAO, to create our token, and to activate our mining program. The vote is ongoing right now, and there's been almost 16,000 people that have already voted as part of, again, this kind of proto-governance system. It is absolutely exciting. This week, we are launching 2 new protocols that I won't reveal because that's for Ramon to do next week. But there is plenty to come in terms of, protocols and friends that are building. So we built on the quiet to now enjoy, this kind of explosive moment of TVL, partnership, and users.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I'm glad that you have this explosive moment to look forward to. I am curious. We didn't really talk about the Kinto token or the governance token, right? But you just briefly mentioned it. Would love to understand anything you can share there, as well as, if developers are building on Kinto, if you have any grant programs or anything like that.
That's a very good question. So obviously there is very little that I can say until the vote passes. What I would invite everyone that participated on Engen or that is thinking on joining Kinto, that go and read any 1, 2, and 3. That is our constitution, our token, and our mining program proposals. Obviously, we are proposing a governance token that has been well received by the community, but there is very little I can say until the vote actually passes, which should happen in 7 to 8 days when the vote finishes. So I'm sure when you speak next week with Ramon, he's going to have a lot more to say on that aspect. Regarding developers, grants, and things like that, stay tuned to our Discord because we are going to be announcing a number of events, a number of small challenges, small hackathons. We are going to be in essentially every hackathon under the sun from August onwards with prizes and interesting ways to engage the community. And in terms of developers, we have now 15 different groups building applications that are going to come on Kinto and are very well-known partners as BAC, Mountain, Centrifuge, and many others.
Well, what are some of those practical applications that developers are building on top of Kinto that you're most excited by?
I think the most exciting pieces we have not seen yet. And hear me out. So all of these users, right, and these developers are bringing applications that were really hard to build on other ones due to these compliant restrictions. However, even though they are all wonderful, what is going to be really interesting is when you can start having composability between those different applications that are coming. When I can do leverage against my own crypto to invest on an indexed fund through BACT, or I can do that and do treasuries through Mountain. this ability, right, to connect DeFi and TradFi, it was impossible because before you have to KYC twice on one protocol, KYC on another, and even though they have no way to talk to each other. So what Kinto provides in this kind of garden that we have created is that now everyone inside that garden is KYC, and so are all the tokens. So composability can happen in a very interesting way. So we have a list of partners on the docs that you should definitely take a look at. But what is most interesting to me is what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months from now when these different partners start to compose on top of each other. And I think that the most exciting product that is going to come on Kinto, this is still to be invented, and this is going to be the summer of seeing those products kind of come alive.
Well, we didn't really touch on this, but 25,000 users. What's really incentivizing a consumer to KYC on Kinto?
That's a very good question. I think there are a couple of different reasons for you to come, and we have identified so far 3 audiences coming to Kinto. Number one is people that Kinto is their first on-chain experience. They are coming directly, they are creating their first wallet ever, but because it's so easy and you have these safety guarantees, they have felt confident from the first time to create their first crypto accounts and to deposit for the first time through their Coinbase directly. They are coming from centralized exchanges, where they were holding this and creating their first crypto experience. So we have a ton of newcomers, and we couldn't be happier to have them with us because this is the safest way to be. Then we have a bunch of developers that are honestly burned out, right? In the sense, developers and users that have been burned out on other chains. They continue to believe on the promise of crypto as a system, but they are tired of being, constantly rug pulled, scam and conned on other networks. So they understand, right, the KYC as a necessary pain, as a necessary step to find that safety on the other side of the fence. And the third one is these compliance protocols and TradFi that is not that they don't want it or they didn't believe on the space. It's that because of the regulations, they couldn't touch it. And now finally they can. And those are kind of the 3 audiences that are onboarding Kinto. And I would say, one third out of those 25,000 fit on those 3 buckets.
Yeah, that's amazing because you pretty recently launched your chain after developing it for quite a while. So much to look forward to. And as we conclude, I would love if you have any final thoughts or guidance for a community, either, generic advice or anybody or, targeting anyone who may be considering contributing to your ecosystem.
I think the last word would be we have a wonderful community so far. I'm super proud of the Discord go that we have seen. We have the most wonderful community and conversations there. So come take a look, try it, go through that creating your wallet experience and see the different in UX, experience a little bit that kind of safest wallet with the easiest UX possible. And let me know your thoughts. I'm always connected to both Discord and our Twitter. Looking forward to understand more. But no, I think the last message is come try it. There is no better way than now. And if the mining program passes, you're going to have plenty of incentives to come, and start depositing on Kinto. So plenty of reasons.
I love that. Okay. Well, as always, we'll share a recap of this session via our newsletter, which is the UETH Digest. And of course, you can keep an eye out for our comms for content pieces and additional announcements for future workshops. We will, of course, also retweet or repost anytime Kinto has some announcement that may be relevant for a community. The most relevant one that's upcoming is a community spaces with Ramon, who is the co-founder and CEO of Kinto. It's going to be July 12th, which is basically today. Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And we will link the spaces in our Twitter announcements as well as this newsletter that we're sharing out. So with that said, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you so much for joining us, Victor.
Thank you, Tina, and to the whole EthCon team. It's been a blast so far. First timers, but we're going to be there absolutely every year. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And thank you everyone for watching.
Bye.
Bye.